Before I call up the next witness to testify, I've consulted with the members of the committee that for the sake of expediency and time, we have decided to allow the testimonies to be received tomorrow morning. We will continue with witnesses today from KSPN, from OPA, and from the Attorney General's office. Witnesses from the Department of Public Safety and from the Commonwealth Ports Authority are hereby advised that their testimony would be rescheduled for tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. in this chamber. So, well, I'm going to instruct the Sergeant-at-Arms to inform the head of the Acting Commissioner for DPS and to also call the Ports Authority police and inform them of this change. So they are dismissed until tomorrow morning. Thank you. Sergeant-at-Arms, please go ahead and inform. At 9 a.m., tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Thank you, Commissioner. Let us resume now where we left off. The next person, the next witness on our list is Ms. Christina Sablan from KSPN 2. Good afternoon, Ms. Sablan.
Good afternoon, Congressman.
Before I ask you to identify yourself and who you represent, I'm going to put you under oath. So if you would kindly answer and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may now put down here. Ms. Sablan, we have viewed the footages that KSPN has provided. I believe they have provided us with the edited version of the events relating to this article. As you probably heard, we will be sending a letter to your boss, I believe, Mr. Chris Nelson, asking that we also be provided copies of the raw footage. But for now, I'd like to start just by asking you to give us in your own words what transpired relating to Mr. Buckingham's airport incident. And before you do that, I just want to get clarification. If you were involved, we know that you were involved at the airport because we saw the video footages. What we don't know was, did you have any contact or involvement prior to the airport? And maybe you can start from whatever events or discussions that may have occurred prior to the airport.
Sure, Congressman. And I don't know how far back you want me to go, but just prior to the incident at the airport on Saturday morning, I the OPA had filed criminal charges against Mr. Buckingham, and I had covered that for the news Friday night. And I was aware that a penal summons had been delivered to the Aquarius Hotel, but that the OPA investigators were still trying to find Mr. Buckingham to deliver it to him in person. And so I had gone to the Aquarius Hotel that night to just do a stakeout and see. I saw the OPA investigators there, and I didn't see the Buckinghams at all while I was there. I was there for a few hours, and with my partner, Glenn. And so, you know, we were just waiting. Everybody was waiting. I didn't actually see the Buckinghams come down at the Aquarius Hotel to get served. And it was around midnight, maybe a little bit after, when I heard a rumor, kind of a tip, that the Buckinghams might be trying to leave the Commonwealth on an early flight the next morning. And so if it was going to be the 6 o'clock flight, I knew that they'd probably be at the airport at about 4 o'clock to check in. It was an international flight through Narita, Japan. So decided to go home, get some rest, and at about 3 o'clock I got up, and Glenn did as well, and we headed for the airport just to see, you know, again, at that moment, I didn't know if there was any basis to the rumor. I mean, I get tips all the time, information all the time, and I wasn't sure if this particular tip would pan out. But at 3:30, when we arrived at the airport, Glenn dropped me off at the curb and went to go park the car, and I saw all these police vehicles and police officers standing around by the curb, and that was when I knew that there was probably something going on. At the time, I thought it was possible that the DPS officers were there to assist OPA in effectuating service of process to Mr. Buckingham before he left. So, but none of the officers inside would talk, and it was at that point that I headed inside, you know, the check-in area. I headed towards the check-in counter just to see, perhaps he was checking in that already, or but I didn't see him there either. Instead I saw the deputy commissioner, the port's police chief, Jordan Kosem, and the governor's driver, Jermaine Nakaifis, heading in my direction, coming from the check-in counter. And it was at that point that I asked Mr. Ambrosio Ogamoro if he had any comments to make. Was Mr. Buckingham trying to leave the island? And again, I thought that perhaps they were there to try to serve the penal summons. I didn't know, and he wouldn't comment. Then we went outside. Stop me at any point if you have any questions. We went outside, and I just kind of followed, and I heard Mr. Ogamoro say something to his officers about wanting me to be out of the area, and then he was also speaking to them in Carolinian. And as soon as he had spoken to the officers standing by the curb, 2 of them came towards me and started directing me to move back and step back, and telling me it was an order, but they would never give any basis for that order, never justified it. And I asked, because I was in a public area, on what grounds are you pushing me back and restraining me, really? And they would never answer. And so after maybe about 20 minutes of kind of standing around, I was getting video of the officers and also of the vehicles that were there, the police vehicles. It seemed like there was something going on, because then the officers started to line up, and then they were coming closer to me and blocking my view, and so I was kind of craning my neck trying to see what was going on, and I heard doors slam, I heard footsteps kind of heading towards the sliding glass doors leading up to the departure terminal. I heard the footsteps, and I looked, and I saw just a fleeting image of the Buckinghams, flanked by Ambrosio Ogamoro and Jermaine Nakaifis, and they headed up the doors and up towards the departure ramp, and then they were gone. And that was when I realized, it was at that point that I understood that actually DPS police were helping him to leave the Commonwealth. And he had not been served his summons at that point. So there was, I mean, it all happened very quickly, and and I was still kind of trying to wrap my mind around what I was witnessing. And I wasn't even sure how much of that I had gotten on camera because there was a scuffle, you know, and it got really intense, especially as the Buckinghams, in those few seconds as the Buckinghams were passing by me, when they were really blocking my view and pushing me back, and then they were up the ramp, and when I had confirmed that he hadn't been served yet, I was just kind of waiting just to see what would happen, because if he left the Commonwealth without being served, then that might have been the end of the case. And then at about maybe sometime between 4 and 5 a.m., FBI agents showed up, and eventually, I mean, this is also in the report, eventually we saw them head up towards the departure ramp. One of them had a paper in hand. They came back out. The paper was not there. It was the penal summons, and then I was able to confirm after that incident that Mr. Buckingham had been served his penal summons.
Thank you. Ms. Sablan, I also seem to recall during the footage that was provided to us, you stated that OPA investigators tried but were unsuccessful with asking CPA to serve the summons. Did you report that?
Yeah, we did. That was what I
Can you elaborate?
told. Yeah.
How'd you find that out, or what did you find?
Because it was my understanding that the CPA Ports Police routinely issue summons, you know, at the airport. The law enforcement officers will often cooperate with each other, and I had covered previous cases where CPA police had issued summons or even like helped effectuate arrests just before somebody was trying to leave the Commonwealth, right? And so I wanted to find out if CPA had been asked for assistance, and I was told that yes, they had been asked, but when I got to the airport that morning, the CPA officers that I spoke to said that they were not going to get involved and they didn't know what I was talking about. And certainly, I mean, in fact, what I saw that morning was the CPA police captain, John Rebuenag, actually carrying the Buckingham's luggage up the ramp. And so, you know, the CPA police certainly did not issue the summons to Mr. Buckingham at that point, at least definitely not while I was there, from what I saw.
Thank you. Representative De La Cruz.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, Ms. Sablan.
Good afternoon.
And thank you for coming. Yes, all of us have viewed the incident that took place on the morning of the 4th. And I wanted to ask you, do you know the chief of the CPA Ports Police?
Do I know him personally?
Have you met him? Have you spoken to him?
I had seen him. I haven't spoken to him. I didn't speak to him that morning either, and I haven't spoken to him since. I have tried to contact him by phone, but my phone calls have not been returned.
And we're talking about Chief Kosem.
Yes.
Jordan Kosem. Did you see him during that morning on the 4th at the airport?
Yes. Yes, I did.
Can you elaborate what he was doing? What was his part? You as a witness, what was he doing during that morning when you saw him?
Sure. The first time I saw him that morning, he was coming from the Delta check-in area, the counter, along with Jorena Caiaphas and Ambrosio Ogumoro. So he was kind of following along with them, and then he went up towards security. I don't know what happened at security at that point. While the officers were blocking me and pushing me back, I tried to go around to get video from the other side through the glass, and I got video of him at the security line after Ogumoro and Caiaphas had gone up with the luggage. So I don't know exactly what his role was, but it certainly appeared to be that he was facilitating, you know, the transfer of luggage and the movement of the other law enforcement officers through security.
Okay. And Mr. Chairman and members of this committee, I bring that question up because as I view the Duces Tecum subpoena documents, one of them is the radio log sheet for August 4th. And the time, 3:48 a.m. Chief Kosem was with the DPS, I believe, Deputy Commissioner. I believe this is an error on the supervisor's or the dispatcher's report. But it states that Chief Kosem was there with the Deputy Commissioner, Captain Nikaifis, Captain Rebanov. And it states here that they were escorting two individuals through screening. Now, the other document that I'm looking at, and I asked Ms. Sablan whether she saw Chief Jordan Kosem during that morning, because along with the slew of documents from the Executive Director of CPA, there's one document that states a Commonwealth Ports Authority manual time and attendance log sheet. And this is for one Jordan I. Kosem with his employee number and his department. But in this time and attendance log sheet, it states on Saturday of August 4th, 2012, that Mr. Kosem was off. He didn't time in, he didn't time out, he didn't time in, he didn't time out, according to his timesheet. So I'm trying to figure out how can he be there if he didn't time in. It states here that he's off. And on the signature part of this timesheet, it was signed by somebody aside from Mr. Kosem. It was signed for. And I just wanted to bring this up so that members are aware that Mr. Kosem shouldn't have been at the airport assisting in the shielding of Mr. and Mrs. Buckingham. It states that he was off, but yet he was physically there. Even the radio log sheet states that he was there. But interestingly enough, he was supposed to be off. So, was he carrying forward his duty as a chief of police for CPA? Or was he there as a regular citizen, if you may? That is the question that we need to find out. And this is a question that we must pose to Mr. Kosem, just for the committee's awareness, if you will. At this time, I'll yield, Mr. Chair, so that other members may also ask Ms. Sablan.
Just to clarify, you didn't ask a question to Was Ms. Sablan supposed to respond to your...
I already asked the question
Okay.
whether she saw Mr. Kosem and what was Mr. Kosem doing when she saw him.
Thank you. Any of the other members have any questions for Ms. Sablan? Representative Guerrero.
Hi, Mr. Sablan, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
You recognize Mr. Kosam, he was there, Ports Police.
Mhm.
Okay. You didn't know whether he was on duty or off duty? No.
I didn't know at that time, at that particular moment, I didn't know what everybody was doing. But it certainly seemed official. And I did notice that, I'd have to go back to the video, but I did notice that Ogumoro and Nikaifis had badges. And
Okay.
I suppose that would be the question to pose to him.
So there were members of DPS there, members of the Ports Police.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any other members from any other agency or?
Besides the Attorney General,
Yeah.
I mentioned the FBI agents, and I saw the OPA investigators also there.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sablan, were you there when Mr. Buckingham checked in to the ticket agent, to the counter?
While I was there, I did not once see either of the Buckinghams approach the ticket counter. The only people involved in that whole incident that I saw coming from the ticket counter were the 3 law enforcement officers that I mentioned. The only time I saw the Buckinghams that morning was when they got out of the vehicle and went straight up the departure ramp.
You saw the Buckinghams arrive at the airport. You were there physically and witnessed the Buckinghams arrive at the airport?
When I got there, I noticed there were police vehicles, and then I saw this gray tinted 4Runner. I didn't know who that vehicle belonged to at the time. I now understand that the Buckinghams were in that vehicle by the time I arrived. And so while I was there, the only time that I saw the Buckinghams step out was to go straight up the ramp. I didn't see them head to, and I don't know exactly what time all of the Buckinghams with their escort, I don't know exactly what time they all arrived. But I got there at about 3:30 in the morning.
I see. But it could have been that prior to your arrival, they may have checked in and then got back to their car and waited there, right?
I suppose that's possible. I didn't see that.
Okay. Thank you. But what you did witness was the Buckingham stepping out of the car and then being escorted straight through the sliding door towards the screening area.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. One other thing I did recall from your coverage of that incident was you asking the Deputy Commissioner that was he aware that there was a penal summons being issued for Mr. Buckingham. I recall that part of your coverage, and I seem to recall that the response was that he did not or was not aware of that.
Yes, he said he didn't know anything about that.
Okay. Thank you, Tina. That's all I have. Would any of the other members, Representative Sablan, and then Vice, did you raise your hand also? No. After Representative Sablan, it will be Representative De La Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You stated that you arrived at the airport around 3:30, and that upon your arrival, although you did not know then, the vehicles that were parked there, none arrived after you were physically present at the airport?
No, I did the vehicles that I was able to capture on video, I mean, those were the ones that I was able to get while there was some downtime, right? I mean, while I was waiting around for something to happen. But I did see, you know, there were other officers who were there that I didn't get a chance to see or talk to. And one that I talked to, I didn't get his name, and he left like minutes after I spoke. So there were other people, other officers who were there who were not in that video.
Okay, and I guess the question here is, the question is vehicle that from which the Buckinghams later emerged from, was that vehicle at the location when you got there?
Yes, it was already parked there.
Was there any movement of officers from that vehicle that you witnessed while you were on location?
Yes, I saw the officers, Mr. Nakaifis and or Captain Nakaifis and Deputy Commissioner Ogumoro. They went to, or I'm sorry, Captain Rebwanag. He and Deputy Commissioner Ogumoro went to retrieve the luggage from the Buckingham's vehicle. But this was after the Buckinghams had already gone up the ramp.
Okay, let's go back. When you arrived at the location, you said that the vehicle in question was already on location. Mm-hmm. Now my question is, when, in your observation or recollection, before the Buckinghams emerged from that vehicle, what activity transpired out from that vehicle? Did you see anybody go there, go in, go out, and where did they go?
The only thing that I can recall, and this would also be in the video, is Ogumoro making some kind of transfer from like either the passenger side or the driver's side to the back, to like the trunk of the car. And this was right after he returned from the check-in counter. So this is okay. So I had talked to him, tried to get a comment. They were all coming from the check-in counter. Ogumoro went and made some kind of transfer. Maybe he was putting something. It looked like he was putting something in the trunk. And that was really the only thing that I saw. And then after that, the only other activity that I remember is the Buckingham stepping out and rushing up towards the ramp.
Okay, so let's go back to the deputy commissioner, Captain Akaifis, and was it, who else were walking from the check-in counter?
Kosem.
Chief Kosem.
Yes.
Now, prior to those three individuals proceeding to the check-in counter, where did they come from? Did you see them? Or were they already at the check-in counter when you arrived?
What I saw was them emerging from the check-in counter.
Okay, so you didn't see them walk to the check-in counter?
No, they were
By
coming
the time
from.
you arrived there, you witnessed them coming from the check-in counter?
Yes.
Proceeding from the check-in counter, where did they go?
Prior to the check-in counter, or
From the check-in counter.
okay.
Because
Well,
you said you didn't see them go to the check-in counter.
Right.
However, by the time you get there, you witness them coming from.
right.
And were you able to get video footage of them at that
Yes.
point?
Yes, I got video footage of them heading from the
Okay.
check-in counter.
So from that point on, after they came from the check-in counter, where did they go?
I followed. I don't know where Mr. Kosem went. I assume he went up towards the ramp, but I followed Ogumoro and Nakaifis out, and I was trying to get some kind of statement from Ogumoro about what was going on. So I followed him out. I heard him give some instructions to his officers. There was that transfer of something to the trunk, but by then the officers were beginning. They moved towards me and started pushing me towards like this dark area of the airport, and so I was really caught up with that.
Okay. Did you see the two individuals, Captain Rubuena, or is it Nakaifis and Deputy Commissioner return to the vehicle or go to the vehicle?
Okamura went to the vehicle.
Only him.
Nekaiphus might have as well, but
I'm just trying to place their movement, track their movement. So, but from the counter to the vehicle is a fair assumption.
Right.
Okay. Kosem, however, did not proceed outside of the departure area, and you said you assumed that he went somewhere.
Right. I didn't see him come out with us.
After that, at what point did you see, if you saw, Captain Kosem again?
After that, it was when the Buckinghams had already gone up the ramp, and I was trying frantically to get inside, to get through the sliding glass doors, and the officers kept blocking me. So then I ran around the other side, and so I was trying to look through the glass, and then I caught a glimpse of Kosem at the TSA security line, and it looked like he was checking in some luggage. And then I tried to go around and try to enter again from the other side, and then the officers blocked me there. Maybe it would be easier to explain if I could show you the video and just kind of
but I'm just trying to get from you to corroborate or substantiate what we can see on the video.
Sure. I do have the.
So when you lost, let me go back. When you lost track of Chief Kosem, you did not see him until later on when you were able to videotape toward the departure? He never did come down?
He never came down, and I was waiting after the Buckinghams had gone up. I waited to see if they would come back out. Kosem or Okamura for that matter. I just wanted to try to get some clarification about what they were doing and try to get a statement from them on the record. But they never came out, and when I went to ask if they were still up in the departure area, what one of the CPA officers told me was that they had probably gone out through the VIP. There's another VIP exit, I guess, and so that they were probably gone. But Nekaiphus's vehicle, that gray 4Runner, was still parked there, and so I just kind of waited until about sunrise, and nobody came out, and then I saw the other police vehicles just leave. So I figured they were all probably gone, and then I just finally went home.
About what time, in your estimation, did the Buckinghams emerge from the vehicle?
I would say probably between 3:45 and 4 a.m.
Okay. And when they emerged from the vehicle, who escorted them?
Mr. Nekaiphus or Captain Nekaiphus and Deputy Commissioner Okamura.
And when they escorted the Buckinghams up, did they ever come down again?
Okamura came down to get the luggage.
Within minutes, or?
I would say, within minutes.
When he came down, what did he do?
He scolded his officers, but it was in Carolinian, and later I was able to get a friend to translate for me what he was saying, but he scolded his officers for not getting me out of the area, and then he went to go retrieve the luggage with the port's police captain.
So him and Captain Robueno retrieved additional luggages or luggages from the...
Yes.
Okay, and then they proceeded up the departure ramp?
Back up the departure ramp.
And then what happened?
And
did any of the gentlemen come down?
After that, no, I did not see Okamura come back down again after that, or Kosem. And again, that was when, after waiting, I was already starting to get light, and I went to just see if they were even still up there, if I was waiting for anyone to come down, and that was when I was told that they had probably taken some kind of VIP exit on the other side. It was about 6 in the morning. It was already light, so when I saw them leave, then I just decided to go home as well.
Can you press your mic, please, Representative Sablan?
Just one question. Tina, you know, because we're trying to get to the reason why they're there, and establish the reason why they're there, and I ask again, at what point did the officers start leaving the scene? Was it after the departure? I mean, generally when you're at the airport, you know when that jet takes off. So you don't need to guess. If you don't recall, just you don't recall. If we just want an honest answer. So was it after the plane took off or before?
I remember commenting to Glenn because I knew that it was a 6 a.m. flight. Because I remember hearing a plane take off, and it would have been about that time, about 6 a.m. and I took off after I heard the plane leave, and then, but it would have been around the time that the plane would have taken off. It was a 6 a.m. flight. The officers left not long after that, and then I left when I saw the officers leave.
Did you see Officer Titus leave?
No, I did not. I didn't see him come back down by the time I left that morning.
How about the Deputy Commissioner?
No.
None of the officers that went up the ramp came down?
No.
By the time you left after 6?
Right. I was told that they probably had taken another exit.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chuck.
Any other members? I'm going to allow Mr. Guerrero. I think you had your hands up first, so whoever raises their hand up first will be recognized. Go ahead, Representative Guerrero. Oh, I'm sorry. I take that back. I did say earlier that after Representative Sablan.
Mr. Chair, I'll yield to Representative Guerrero.
You are so kind. Thank you. Go ahead, Rep.
Hey, thank you, Representative De La Cruz. Hi, Tina again. Did you have any information that would lead us to, that would lead tie the governor into ordering DPS or the port's police to escort Buckingham?
Well, based on what I saw that morning, I mean, I can tell you what I saw myself. And I saw top law enforcement officers.
Okay, no, I'm sorry. I really already heard what you saw, but did you have any factual? All I'm trying to do is find the truth. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to kill your testimony or whatnot. I think your testimony still stands for a lot. But have you come across anything factual that would tie in the governor in ordering these guys to accompany?
My colleague, so after this incident, one of my colleagues did get a chance to interview the governor, and I believe she asked him, I can't remember exactly how she phrased the question, but she did ask, if he had anything to do with these law enforcement officers assisting Mr. Buckingham in leaving the Commonwealth. And as I recall, he didn't answer the question directly. He just said Mr. Buckingham had sold everything, had sold his vehicle. It sounded like he needed a ride, and Mr. Nakaifas had used his personal vehicle to take him. That's what I remember from his response. But it's also my understanding that free transportation is provided by the hotel where Mr. Buckingham was staying. I was also aware of a rental car that Mr. Buckingham had at his disposal. I had actually taken some video of that didn't make it into the video.
That's fine, but
news stories.
Nothing factual yet, right? Nothing solid.
And I also I haven't had a chance to interview the governor, but I did ask the lieutenant governor if he had had anything to do with it or knew about the whether or not the governor was involved in. And the lieutenant governor said he didn't know. So I suppose that question would perhaps best be directed to the governor or the law enforcement officers who were there for a reason.
Thank you. Rep. De La Cruz.
Thank you, Chairman. Before I ask my next question, Ms. Sablan had earlier stated that there was a video or a recording during that incident wherein the conversations were in Rafalawash. And Ms. Sablan has also stated that they had transcribed the recording. And I would like to ask Mr. Chair if this committee can be furnished with such a recording so that we may listen as to the latter part of the incident that took place. Is that something that we can ask for, Mr. Chair? Before I pose my next question.
Earlier, I think Rep. Torres and I think yourself did ask that the chairman ask KSPN to provide the raw and unedited footages of these incidents. And since Ms. Sablan is here, if perhaps to answer that question, if these raw footages do contain the what you're asking for, then it should be in there.
You're talking
The
about
translated footage or recording.
the translations we actually did in the edited footage. It was something I showed the raw footage to a friend who speaks Carolinian, and he helped me kind of understand what was going on, and so I wrote down the translation that I received, and I gave that to our production team. Normally, Mr. Chairman, we don't release raw footage, or stations don't release raw footage. That's normally the course of business. I can't really, I don't know whether or not our station owner will authorize that, but I do actually have, when I got home that morning, I was worried about protecting the video, and because I didn't know what would happen. If you see law enforcement officers engage in the activity that I had seen, I really didn't know how best to protect the video, or myself for that matter. And so I made multiple copies, and I have it on my personal laptop. And I could show it in executive session if the committee would like to see it, but I would really ask that it not be aired, at least until our station owner makes a decision as to your request.
Thank you, but I guess Representative De La Cruz, the translations were included in the video we had watched and that we have access to. So if that was what you wanted, we have it in our possession, and you can certainly review that at your own time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And at this time, I would like to pose the question to Ms. Sablan as it relates again to the incident that occurred in the early morning of the 4th. We had viewed the video footages. At one point during the video, the camera was uncontrollably shaken. Would you say that was the point where you were pushed or you were assaulted while trying to film what is going on and the departure of Mr. and Mrs. Buckingham?
That was certainly when the tension and the restraint on me seemed to escalate. And like I said, it happened so quickly. It was really a matter of seconds. But I was very conscious of at least 2 officers kind of bearing down on me, pushing me back. And I remember feeling somebody's hand on me. But it happened so quickly, and I was so shocked. And there was so much adrenaline going on that, but yeah, it was at that point that I lost control of the camera, and I was just trying to kind of gain my bearings and understand what was happening.
I understand. And at that time, when you were pushed, did you recognize, were these officers that had pushed you? Were they officers of DPS or officers of CPA?
They were definitely officers of DPS. They were uniformed and armed, and so I recognized them as police officers.
Can you tell the committee, or would it be more appropriate if the committee went into executive session so that you may name these two officers that had pushed you or assaulted you?
I believe it's actually already a matter of public record. The officers that I had encountered the most, who were really, who had been instructed to kind of get me out of the area, were Officer Myron Benigno and Stanley Patrice.
Are these the two same? Are these DPS officers?
Yes, and they're the ones that appear most prominently in the video footage.
And were they the ones that pushed you?
Yeah, well, they were the ones who were, like I said, who had been instructed by the deputy commissioner to keep me out of the area, and who were kind of ordering me, really. They actually said it at one point, this is an order, to keep stepping back, and they were kind of pointing me into this other direction. And at one point, one of them, possibly both of them, like I said, it happened very quickly, but at one point they were both bearing down on me. I felt somebody's hand on me, and then the Buckinghams were gone, and then actually it was really as things were escalating that Glenn came up from the other side, came up behind them, and yelled at them to stop harassing me.
Thank you, Mr. Blunt. I'll yield in this time.
Thank you, Rep. Do any of the other members have any further questions for Ms. Sablan? Okay, thank you. Ms. Sablan, I would like to ask one question and then ask for have a request for you after the question. My question is, I think during one of the footages that shows the FBI agents coming out from the airport, and they no longer had the summons with them, and you reported that that it was served. I seem to recall your statement to the effect that there was I believe it was Chief Kosem who was at the VIP lounge, and that there was an exchange of words. You didn't know what the exchange of words were, but then you said that Mr. Buckingham was served. Subsequent to that, were you able to get information as far as what was actually exchanged during that serving?
Well, just to clarify, I had been several witnesses that I talked to who were in the area at the time or had direct knowledge of what had happened said that it was actually the three of them. That what I was told was that Kosem was kind of standing on guard outside of the lounge, but that Kosem, Ogumoro, and Nakaifis were shielding the AG, Mr. Buckingham, within the lounge, and that there was an attempt to actually lock the lounge to keep people out. And it was at that point that I believe the airline advised them that they couldn't do that. That's open to all their business clients, and they couldn't lock the lounge. And so, I don't know. So when Mr. Kosem purportedly stood outside to stand on guard, from what I was told, then I guess that was when there was an encounter with the FBI agents, and I don't know exactly what was said, but ultimately they were able to get through the officers to serve Mr. Buckingham that summons.
Thank you. My request is if you can provide this committee with the unedited copy that you have provided, that it would not be disclosed, that if this committee were to view it, it would be during an executive session. Is that amenable to you?
I think for physical copies, I'm personally comfortable showing the video. If it were up to me, I would personally be comfortable providing the copy. However, that's for a physical copy. I think that might have to go through the station owner, and I don't know what he has decided on that matter. But if that was something that the members of this committee wanted to view in executive session, I have my personal laptop here. It's one of the computers that I had saved copies on as a precaution when I first returned from the airport that morning.
Thank you. Rep. Guerrero.
I understand that perhaps the people at the station could possibly plead the fifth or a right for reporters, whatnot. But in our proceedings, how far would pleading the fifth go? I want to direct that question to our counsels.
Counsel.
We haven't completed our full analysis of that particular question. We need to look at that on a case-by-case basis to see what the argument would be. And I would prefer not to lend out an opinion hypothetically with an incomplete hypothetical. When it's asserted, it'll be asserted, and then we can deal with it.
But then something like this, getting the unedited, the raw footage, I think that's something that's very relevant to this committee, that this committee would want to see.
I'm still not understanding. The witness has not asserted the privilege, and I'm being asked to give you a legal opinion as to the validity of her non-assertion. Is that what I'm asked?
Let's go back to what I had asked before about the tip. Okay, all right. Okay, you said that if we, in order to get around answering it from a legal standpoint, we would have to vote on that, right?
Assuming the presiding officer directed the witness to answer the question, it would have to be a relevant question.
Right.
And if the committee itself voted by a majority that it was not a relevant question, then even the presiding officer's direction to compel the witness to answer a question would be overruled.
Okay. Now, if we were to apply that to a question like getting the raw footage for the video, even if they would say a reporter's privilege or the Fifth Amendment, as long as we deemed it essential to our investigation.
I still would hesitate to lend a legal opinion based on the facts as you're presenting them. The presiding officer, and I'm reading 1304, at a hearing may direct the witness to answer any relevant question. If the witness asserts a privilege or refuses to answer a question, then at that point you can address it. The committee may vote on whether or not it's relevant or not. To address your question legally, I'm sorry, there would have to be a proper assertion of the privilege, and I don't want to speculate as to if a reporter wants to assert a self-incrimination. First of all, civilly that would presume criminal activity. I'm not responding to that question because the answer may tend to incriminate me in a civil manner, criminal matter. Reporters don't usually assert Fifth Amendment in a self-incrimination. They usually assert it in a I'm protecting my source context. This is not applicable here. She's not protecting her source. She is the source.
And maybe I think if the issue at hand is the raw footage, perhaps we can wait until we get a response. I've already directed that a letter be drafted, and we will send it out today to the KSPN, and maybe we should wait for his response to figure out what we're going to do next, since we already have somebody that may provide it to us under the proper circumstances, I guess. Representative Sablan.
Chairman, I don't know, but I think we need clarification from legal counsel. I understand that this is not in regards to a question posed to the witness, but rather a request that will require a subpoena, since we are requesting for documentation. So if the committee feels that we need to press the issue on the subpoena for the raw footage, then I think the committee should decide that. I don't think a letter at this point is the way to go. If the committee feels that this information is vital to the committee, then I think if legal counsel can help you on this, I think the documentation at question I think will require a subpoena and
can I respond?
And not a letter.
I think I can respond to that. The reason I said we'd follow it up with a letter was because the subpoena that was issued to KSPN did include raw footages and unedited and raw footages. So we already served that to KSPN. It was not provided, so we're following up with a letter, not only asking for those copies, but asking that if they're not to provide those copies to this body, to justify why. And so that's why I'm asking if we can allow them to respond to that. At that time, we would be able to determine what our next course of action would be. So if there's no objection, we can move on. I am not going to ask Ms. Tina Sablan to give us her footage today, simply because we will wait first for KSPN to respond to the chairman's letter. Are there any further questions of Ms. Sablan before I excuse her, or rather dismiss her? If not, Ms. Sablan, dismiss means that you may be called back. Excuse means we don't want you back. So you are being dismissed.